Hi, this is Suchi, and in our previous video, we were talking about exception handling in Python. Now, in the previous two videos, we have discussed about different type of exception handling, and in this video, we will talk about else and finally block in exception handling, how they are important and why we need them. So previously, you have seen these two things, try and except, these two keywords we have used. So in this video, we will talk about else and finally. Now let us see why we need else and finally. Let's say this is our code where we need to perform this operation. We have a list which has two elements. We are expecting it to be having two elements. And what we need to do is we need to find the subtraction from the first element to the second element. Now, if we subtract second element from the first element, we get this value, and afterwards we have to divide this dv with the result of the subtraction. Now, this result will be our final result, which we will be printing or displaying. So if we run this code and if everything is fine, this will be giving us this result. But imagine this 10 is in string format for some reason. And now if we run this code, you can see we are getting a type error. So as you know, how we can handle this exception? We just need to add a try catch block to handle this exception. And let's say we need to set result to -1 if some exception is occurring. So how we will deal with this scenario? Let us copy this. And what we will do is we will put a try block here and all these things inside the try block. And here we will have one except block where we can have a statement saying some exception occurred. And then we can set the result to -1. Let me add another message here where I will say that setting result to default value. And then I can add this print statement again. So this is one way to do this, to perform this. Now if we run this, you can see here it is getting executed correctly. If I put a string value over here, it will be saying some exception occurred, setting res to the default value. And the default value is 1. So you can see the result is 1. Here we can add some message. Final value of res is same thing. I will add here. So here you can see it is working fine as per our expectation. Now, if we look at it very carefully, we have put all these three statements inside this try block. So what if here we can see that, okay, if I just run this, it is getting performed correctly. But we want to handle just this line of code for exception handling. We don't want to handle this line. So if I put 20 here, you can see if I put 20, it will become 20 minus 20, which is a 0. And this should be a division by 0 error, which will be occurring in this line. But that is also getting handled by this exception handling. And we are not getting any hint. We cannot see the difference here. But if I make it 20, you can see that now the exception is not happening here. The exception is being raised from this line. But we just want to handle this line for exception. We do not want to handle this line. So in that scenario, what we can do is we can shift this to an else part. So let me show you how it works. So if I remove this block of code from here and I put it inside else part, what will happen? If some exception occurs in this line, it will be moving inside this except block. But if no exception is there, it will be coming inside this else block. Let me just add some print statement so that you will understand it better. No exception occurred calculating res. Okay. Now, if I run this statement, you can see the exception occurring at this line is being thrown. So we are aware that some other exception occurred, but no exception occurred at this line. So while calculating result, this exception occurred, not while doing this operation, this subtraction operation. So we just wanted to handle this line of code and we are doing that. So this exception is not getting hidden. We are not accidentally handling some other exception. We are only handling the exception that we want to handle. So in this situation, now we are getting to know that this exception is occurring from else part, not from the try part. And now if we have 10, you can see this line is getting executed. After that, it is coming into the else part where it is saying no exception has occurred and calculating result. Result is getting calculated by this line, by this expression, and then it is printing the result here finally. Now, if you look at it properly, if you look at it very carefully, you can see this statement is being repeated both in the except part and the else part. So this is a repeated statement. And this has to be performed irrespective of exception is occurring or not. So in such scenario, what we can do is we can add one finally block, which will get executed irrespective of exception occurs or not. So here we can add that block saying finally, add this. We do not need to add it in every block. If we have multiple except statement with specific exception handling, then also this is very handy. And generally finally block is very much important when we are dealing with some connection and all. So if we are connecting to some database, let's say inside the try block, and we are performing some of the operations in else block, except block, afterwards, after we have performed all the operations, we have to close the connection. In that scenario also, we use the finally block to make sure that connection is closed after everything has been performed. Even if some exception occurs, the finally block should get executed. So now, if we run this code, it should work similarly. So here you can see no exception occurred, calculating res here, and then the final value of res is 4.0, that is coming from the finally block. Same thing will happen if there is some exception. Let's say I'm putting a string over here. So here you can see some exception occurred, setting res to default value, and the final value of res is -1. Again, if there is no value at the first index, what will happen? Some exception occurred and this. So here you can see the else block is being executed when no exception has occurred, and the finally block is executed irrespective of exception occurs or not. So that's how we can use else and finally in our code efficiently. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Keep learning, keep implementing. Thank you for watching.